Warning, the following video contains in-depth industry knowledge about the business side of baseball. Watching this program will make you way smarter than your coworkers, colleagues, and friends.
We're in New York City and it's negative 50 degrees out, but we're here at Mickey Mantle's, and there's no better time than today to go inside and talk hot stove baseball.
It's Be Your Own Fan TV with your host, Tyler Taminia, sponsored by M-Style Marketing.
Come inside. Let's have a chat with Professor Wayne McDonnell. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So Wayne, you're a clinical assistant professor of sports management at NYU. And you began your career in sports business at Madison Square Garden as a financial analyst and accountant. Your many areas of expertise include MLB, franchise relocation, economics and finance, stadium construction and development, free agency and compensation for professional athletes. Am I missing anything?
I guess, Mike, to really summarize it, the business of baseball. Anything that has to do with the business of baseball, that's my area of expertise right now.
Great. So let's dive right into it.
Sure.
Let's talk about some of your ideas on revenue sharing and competitive balance and what that has done for the landscape of Major League Baseball.
Usually around this time of the year, we see a lot of things happen with regard to revenue sharing and the luxury tax. This past week alone, the Yankees were charged with paying $25.7 million in a luxury tax penalty for having a payroll over $200 million. This past summer, I've done a lot of research on revenue sharing to determine whether or not it's working for the game of baseball. And in my opinion, it is working, but there are flaws to the system. And I've come to the realization that we cannot address this again in a collective bargaining agreement. We just need accountability and responsibility from the commissioner and also the commissioner's office to challenge teams to use the money wisely. And the two teams that come to my mind who are using revenue sharing properly are the Minnesota Twins and the Oakland Athletics. Look what they've been able to do over the past decade when revenue sharing has been in place.
You think Scott Boras helped or hurt several of his clients this offseason? Johnny Damon, Matt Holliday, or have the owners stepped on their own feet with how they distributed dollars to players?
Major League Baseball Players Association just released their average salaries per position. And what we've noticed is that teams are paying for first basemen, designated hitters, and third basemen. Now, in the case of a Matt Holliday and a Johnny Damon, they're corner outfielders. And in the case of Johnny Damon, he's a 36, 37-year-old outfielder. And if he played his cards right, he could receive a deal very similar to Bobby Abreu, a 2-year, $19 million deal. But right now, he wanted that 3 to 4 year deal, and I think Scott Boras has been a disservice to him in that particular case.
It was talked about a lot in Indianapolis at the baseball winter meetings, salary arbitration in this new economic environment, salary caps now more than ever.
I'm a firm believer, as long as Marvin Miller, Donald Fear, and now Michael Weiner have a breath of air in their lungs, we will never see a salary cap in Major League Baseball. We've heard the rumors about having a salary minimum, but that's a backdoor salary cap. I think the way the current revenue sharing system is set up and the luxury tax threshold with the penalties the way it is baseball's version of having a salary cap.
Let's talk about the Roy Halladay deal.
I think it was a smart deal that should have been done in July. I really think, long and short of it, the Toronto Blue Jays dropped the ball. Because if they cut that deal with the Philadelphia Phillies in July, when rumors had it that it was going to be done, you might have the Philadelphia Phillies be the world champions this year. When you look at Roy Halladay, he's such a unique pitcher in this day and age. He threw 9 complete games last year. That is an anomaly today. We don't see pitchers throwing complete games. Now, he's going from arguably the toughest division in all of baseball, the American League East, to National League East, in a ballpark that's suited for him, in a team that's already a World Series finalist. So the Phillies made out dramatically here in a positive way. Also the Mariners. The Mariners got a lot stronger. Throw in Milton Bradley, you throw in Cliff Lee, signing Sean Figgins. Look at the depth that they've been able to put together up in the Pacific Northwest. Baseball's alive and well in Seattle. but I don't think it's going to be alive and well in Toronto, what they did.
What are your thoughts on like other sports being able to trade draft picks during the Major League Baseball draft?
The MLB Network did a great job this year putting the draft on television and promoting it and talk about it, but the average baseball fan cannot relate to a lot of the ball players. If you had the angle of trading draft picks or doing something to spice it up a little bit, it might be a benefit, but the problem there would be the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, and Mets would probably get all the draft picks and get the better players. This year's draft was really a big deal for baseball because of Steven Strasburg. Slotting fees, internationalization of the draft, these things have been talked about. And I really do believe that Major League Baseball should eliminate the posting system and develop a structure where you're allowed to have the Japanese ball players qualify for the Major League Baseball draft. Granted, it's a very long and convoluted and a very difficult process, but I think with the intelligent people that work at Major League Baseball, you could put together a draft that can entice people. Now you bring in a player like Yu Darvish, who is basically a god over in Japan, and whenever he's eligible to be posted, you know who's going to be involved. But if you put a player like that into a draft, in an international draft, where not only is he competing against high school and college players, but Latin American players, there's more intrigue to the draft. And I think that's what the problem is with the draft in baseball, along with the slotting fees.
Good point. And let's jump and talk about like the basic economic sports model that we all work off of, right? It's winning equals, higher attendance equals potential playoff appearance, which obviously would lead to increased local revenue. Why don't you explain that a little further and define that?
Baseball's model is completely different than the NFL. We've become very enamored with the NFL model because it's nationally based. Baseball's model is local in nature. So we know going into it, New York, LA, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Boston are going to be stronger financially because they're market size. Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, they'll never be able to compete with those markets on the local side. That's one of the big problems with baseball. But with the revenue sharing and the luxury tax system built in, it gives these markets an opportunity to get $30, $40, $50 million a year via revenue sharing. But the one thing that kind of perplexes me at times is how teams are using this money, or lack thereof, and how they're building their teams. The Florida Marlins in particular, from 2003 to 2008, received about $184 million in revenue sharing. Last year, their payroll was $37 million. For 3 consecutive years, the revenue sharing money they received was greater than their total team payroll. So there are issues like that going into it. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, baseball has done the right thing with its business model. It is far better than where it was 10, 15 years ago, where a marketing department didn't even exist. But there are still things that they need to address going forward.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, the one thing that I find very interesting, and I think it's fitting that we're here in Mickey Mantle's today, is to talk about the Yankees. And someone who studies their business model very intimately for a number of years, I get a lot of grief from people who talk about how the Yankees bought a world championship. The one thing that I've been a critic of is people saying the Yankees throw money at issues and problems and players. Well, they spent $500 million on 3 players last year, which is equivalent to the gross national product of third world countries. But there is 2 words that I like to use when I talk about the Yankees now: effective and efficient. They are running a business. Unlike the past where George Steinbrenner would just throw money at a player, they're working towards a number. I'm hearing words like budget, we need to cut our salaries, we need to work on payroll, and even look at the moves that they've made. In the past, they would have been in the John Lackey sweepstakes, they would have been in the Matt Holliday, they would have been really deep in the Roy Halladay. They were on the peripheral looking at these moves. They have a bigger vision, goal, and objective, and I think that is all a tribute to what Hal Steinbrenner is doing with the organization. It is more business-oriented. And Sports Business Journal said it best this past week. The Yankees have become a more likable organization due to the new leadership model that Hal Steinberg is trying to implement.
Sure. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
Thanks everyone for watching, but I want to give a special thanks to Adam and Bart Alexander here at Mickey Mantle's for letting us film here. Bart, why don't you tell them where you're located?
Well, we're right here on one of the most beautiful blocks in the world on Central Park South, right across from Central Park at 6th Avenue.
Great. And Adam, why don't you tell them where the website is?
Website is www.mickeymantles.com.
From all of us at the Gold Coin Group, Happy New Year. And this is the year to be your own fan.